help others live their dream, to provide a platform. It's been a whole process and it's been wild, but we're here.
Everybody just knows you as Ricardo Rodriguez. Before that, you were a serious wrestler.
Mexican lucha libre, that's how I started. When I switched over to the American side, I became Ricardo.
Is there a part of you that's going, I want to wrestle?
That was tough at first, that I'm a ring announcer now and I have to be goofy.
You were right there for Alberto's biggest moments of his career.
Oh yeah. The fact that we were always together helped the dynamic.
The reception you got when you entered the Royal Rumble in 2012.
It was surreal. This whole time I was just on the side. To have that spotlight, that was cool.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you and welcome to the Three Legacies Wrestling Academy.
It's good to see you again.
It's been, well, actually, no, we saw each other not too long ago.
Yeah,
almost
a year.
Yeah. It's been a year.
But the last time that I did an interview with you.
Yeah. 2012?
Yeah.
12, 13?
Yeah, 12
years ago. You were
years
rocking
ago.
that mustache.
Oh, no. It was for a good cause.
It was.
It was for Movember. People don't seem to realize that I was doing that, not because I thought it looked good, because
I thought you were going for like that 70s, you know.
It was funny. I got made fun of so much for that terrible mustache back then. Now, mustaches are cool now.
Yeah, they are.
Maybe I need to bring it back.
I think you should.
So we're in PA right now.
Yep.
And you've opened up this wrestling school here. You have a promotion here, Three Legacies Wrestling. 2-year anniversary as well.
Yeah, and actually that's why you're also a part of why you're here. A good friend of ours, Jared, has brought you in, and I'm very proud to be able to have something that we've been building for the last 2 years. And then to have you as a part of it, man, I'm beyond happy about that. I'm proud of that.
Man, I'm honored that you invited me out. So thank you for that. Congrats on everything you've built here as well.
It's been a process. Just like, and I'm sure you know, the process of building something it can be strenuous and it could be very stressful. But when you finally see something grow that you put in so much love and effort and pain and suffrage into, and then you see it blossom, that you've nurtured it, it's pretty rewarding.
Did you always want to have a wrestling school?
No, not at all. This is something I just kind of developed over the last several couple of years, maybe, honestly. I've been grateful that I've had the privilege of running schools and at least running classes. And even in my time with WWE, I was put in a position to kind of help guide others through the help, obviously, of my mentors that were there with me. And as time went on, I just started taking that a little bit more seriously. And I got put in a position where I was given trust to be able to help others. And then now that I have this opportunity to build my own thing, to build my own legacy, I'm very grateful for it.
It's called Three Legacies. What are the Three Legacies?
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. Okay. It's all kind of mixed into one. So before WWE, I used to wrestle under the name of Chimera. A chimera is a couple of different things, but ultimately it is a Greek monster. And it is 3 animals in one. So it's a goat, a serpent, and a lion. So that's 3.
That was a masked wrestler, right?
I was a luchador. So I started on Lucha Libre first before I switched over to the American side. Also, the idea of the past, present, and future to me is something that's been pretty cool because you take the old style wrestling and you mix it in with the now, and then you eventually going to progress into whatever the future may be. And then just also the idea of the body, mind, and soul is key. So that's also what goes into the idea of Three Legacies Wrestling.
It's so interesting when you talk about having this other character before WWE, because everybody just knows you as Ricardo Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Like this comedy character.
Yeah.
But before that, you were a serious wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's night and day if you ever go back. And at the time, I started in Mexican Lucha Libre. That's how I started. And I was very grateful for my trainer, Latigo Blanco, who just would beat the living dog hell out of us, but in a good, constructive way. And I learned so much from that. And then when I switched over to the American side, it was a struggle at first, but then once I kind of started getting my groove, and I had awesome trainers that were helping me switch from Mexican style to the American style. These guys named Los Luchas, Phoenix Star and Zocre from PWG. So they were a big part of that too. And when I started kind of modeling what I wanted to be in the American side, I used to watch like Super Dragon, Samoa Joe, Low-Ki, Great Muta, how they were more just aggressive and they didn't really talk. And it was more so just the mannerisms. So in my head, at least, I would tell myself, you're this badass. You're just going to go and kick everybody in the head. And then you'll incorporate a couple little lucha things here and there. But But that's what I used to try and do and emulate. And then I became Ricardo.
Yeah, all of that is the exact opposite,
Very opposite
of your character.
because I did not talk, and then I got hired to talk. So that was a whole 180. Because prior to that, I maybe had cut maybe one promo.
No way.
Ever in the 4 years I was doing independent wrestling, maybe 1 or 2 promos tops, and I got hired to talk. So the irony of how all that kind of came about.
Were you hired with the idea that you were going to be paired with Alberto Del Rio?
Yeah, sort of. So I ended up, this is a backstory to how things kind of happened.
Yeah.
I had worked for this guy, this promoter in Southern California named Jesse Hernandez, who owns Empire Wrestling Federation. And Jesse used to be a referee for WWF, I think. But he had been around for a while. And he became one of the main promoters in Southern California. So I got to wrestle for him once, and right after the match, he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, WWE's coming to town in a couple of, I think at this point it was like 2 months or so." He's like, "Would you be interested in doing a tryout?" And mind you, this is the first time I've met him, so he didn't owe me anything. And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I jumped in on that. I did the tryout. And at the time, I didn't know too much about what was going on the WWE television, because my full-time job as a graphic designer was a full-on production type thing. So it was an all-day, 12-hour, 16-hour shifts, right? So I wasn't watching wrestling really. And then when I was getting out of work, I would go straight to training. So then when I go and I did an actual tryout at the Staples Center, I don't know what it's called now.
Crypto.com Arena.
One, yeah. So I did the tryout at the Staples Center. It was the Monday after SummerSlam 2010. I think August 10th, I think is when we did the tryout.
Dude, your tryouts in the Staples Center?
Yeah, the tryout.
That's amazing.
And we got there super early. We did like a 3-hour tryout. So we finished that, and then they come up to me afterwards. The talent scout guy at the time was named Ty Bailey. So Ty Bailey comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, he just kind of asked me a couple questions. He's like, "Are you under contract anywhere?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Are you married?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Do you have kids?" I was like, "Not that I know of." He's like, "If given the opportunity, would you be willing to relocate to Florida?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." And at that point, I had been promised the moon by so many promoters, and I didn't know any better. So I was like, whatever, right? I'll just we'll see. We'll just kind of play by ear and see what happens. So then we go to catering, and I was only scheduled for that tryout. I wasn't scheduled for like Smackdown or anything. I was just scheduled for the tryout, but I stuck around. Because obviously they welcome me to stay in case they need extras or whatever. So they went up to this other gentleman that had done the tryout with me, and we did like this thing where we did matches and we did tournament style, and at the end of it was myself and this other guy. And they had gone up to him first, and they're like, "Hey, they're looking for this re-announcing thing," and they had asked him, and for whatever reason, he said he couldn't make it the next day. So then Jesse goes up to the individuals that were in charge, and he's like, "Well, he speaks Spanish." So then they approached me, and they're like, "Hey, do you have a tuxedo?" I was like, "No." But I mean, I was like, "Yes." I told him, "Yes, of course."
Yeah.
And I didn't. They asked if I've ever done re-announcing before, and I told them yes, which I never have.
But I love that. The answer is always yes.
So yeah.
Of course.
Of course. So then they're like, "All right, come tomorrow to SmackDown in Bakersfield." And they didn't tell me what for. They're just like, come tomorrow. I was like, "Cool, awesome." So then I go and the
whole time were you thinking a tuxedo and ring announcing?
Right,
but I just had a wrestling tryout.
Right. So then I go to the Goodwill that was like across the street from where I used to live, and I got a cheap little suit. And there was a bridal store across the street from that on Van Nuys and Victory in the Valley. And there was a bridal store, so I bought a bunch of bow ties. And coincidentally, too, because I wasn't scheduled for that Raw and at the that SmackDown, excuse me, and Miro was actually on that trial with me, and we were training together at Knox Pro. So I told him, and he's like, "Well, just take the room that I had purchased for like the night, whatever, the hotel.
Yeah,
just take it." I was like, "Cool." So he let me stay. He offered it, but Bakersfield was only like an hour and a half, 2 hours from the Valley.
Yeah,
but so we were in the tryout together. So then I go to Bakersfield. I do the first little walkthrough, and they tell me what I'm doing, and I get introduced to Alberto. And at the time, I didn't really know who he was. He seemed familiar, and so we go over the rundown of what we're doing. So then they tell me, "Hey, you're going to be announcing this guy." and we do the first rehearsal, and Vince waddles down the ramp as I see him, and I was like, oh, so he does like the little walk, and I was like, dude, that thing's real.
He walks like that in real life?
He's done. I mean, when I saw him, at least in my mind, he was doing that power walk that he does.
Yeah.
And then he comes up to me, and then because I had already done one rehearsal, and he's like, no, not like that. Be more animated. Be more Hispanic. Whatever that means, right? So just be more Hispanic. I was like, all right, cool. So then I started thinking of the AAA announcers, how they're so, loud and this. And so I took that approach, and he's like, yeah, that. So then I do it. And obviously the first time around, it wasn't as big and extravagant as once I got used to it.
Yeah.
But they liked it. I did the first night. And then that week they were doing a double taping of Smackdown because the guys were going overseas. The Smackdown guys were going over to Europe, to the European tour. And I believe that's when they got stuck because of the volcano. There was a volcano in Iceland. And I think on the way back, they got stuck. I think it was that week. So I did Bakersfield on Tuesday, and then we did a double taping. So on Wednesday, we were in Fresno. So then I go up, I do the deal. Alberto wrestled this wrestler by the name of Alex Kozlov, who was in New Japan and CMLL and Ring of Honor. So he wrestled him. And then after that, Mark Carano and Johnny Ace, they pulled us into the office and they asked us basic questions. They're like, hey, are you on a contract? And I was like, no. So they asked Alex the same. And I think at the time he was wrestling for AAA, but a per appearance type deal. So then they're like, would you guys want to sign? Basically, we're going to offer you, especially for me, because they talked to us separately. But they offered us both contracts. So then, so that's kind of how it started. But at the time, I didn't really know who Alberto was. And I had a friend who was a super like Mark fan. So I was like, hey, who's this guy? Because I knew he would know.
Yeah.
Because obviously dirt sheets and all that stuff, he will look into who he was. So he's like, oh, that's Dos Caras Jr. I was like, no way. So obviously I grew up watching Lucha Libre. So I became an instant fan of just the idea that that's, the nephew of Min Máscaras, the son of Dos Caras, the nephew of Psicodélico, or cousin, I believe. So I was like, cool, this is like Mexican royalty. So I fanned out for a little while. And so I got signed, and then I was basically an extra for about 3 months. I did my physical, I did the background check, all that stuff. And then they flew me out to TV right off the bat. And then eventually I got that call that they're like, hey, you passed, basically. We're going to send you to Florida. And it just kind of went from there.
To go from your tryout to the next day you're on Smackdown?
On Smackdown, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. And then just nervous, right? Because again, I go back to the same thing of I had never cut promos, and I got hired to talk. So that's the whole irony of how this whole thing, and also the fact that I had lied about my qualifications to get to that spot, but I had to be able to back up my BS. And thankfully I don't know if they saw through it, but it worked.
All right, shout out to Viore, not just for making the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet, but for sponsoring this episode of the show. It is no secret that I like to wear a good plain black t-shirt during a lot of these interviews. Sometimes a plain white one, on occasion a plain gray one, but I just love a good solid t-shirt. And the Ponto Performance tee, that's what I'm wearing right now, which is insanely flexible and stretchy. It's part of Viore's Dream Knit collection. The cool thing about this is, this is something that you can wear during an interview. It's also something that I work out in all the time. It kind of like allows you to do both. Like I was talking about, it's so versatile. Also, check out the Ponto Performance Joggers. These are so comfortable with their 4-way performance stretch. Great for just lounging around or great for working out in. And this is something that I wear around the house all the time. I also wear to the airport all the time because I just want to be comfortable when I fly. I have a closet full of Viore clothing and I know that you're going to love it too. Check out the link down below in the pinned comments, viore.com/CVV. They're giving you 20% off your first purchase. This is the most versatile and comfortable clothing on the planet. Just look at that 4-way stretch there. It's going out of the frame with the 4-way stretch. Viore.com/CVV.
Is there a part of you though that's going, man, I want to be a wrestler. I've been training to be a wrestler. And now they've got me in this gimmick where I'm a ring announcer for somebody. I want to wrestle.
That was definitely a struggle. The idea of, hey, now I'm a ring announcer. I'm not a wrestler anymore. because that's all I knew at the time, right? I had spent so many years going up and down the coast, on the West Coast, in the U.S., in Europe, in Mexico, wrestling, and now I can't. And obviously, I'm still trying to earn my stripes within the locker room, so I can't just go into the ring, and I have to just kind of wait, right? So that's where the ego kind of came in, and I was like, man, this sucks. I hate it. I want to wrestle. But as time went on, they started putting me in positions where I think the first time that I got attacked was by Ray. So all I had to do was sell for Ray. So he hits me from the back. I get in the position, and then 619. So that was like the first time. And then I remember when we got to the back, and they're like, man, you sold that really well. Because nobody knew. Nobody knew, because the only people that were there for the actual tryout was Matt Sydal, Tyson Kidd, and Jamie Noble. Those were the only actual wrestlers that were there for the tryout. So those were the only people that knew that I actually even knew how to wrestle.
Yeah.
Or at least what I call wrestling. So that was tough at first, just to kind of let go of the ego that I'm no longer that wrestler guy anymore, that I'm a ring announcer now and I have to be goofy, because I was always serious, and at least my persona was serious. So as a wise man once said, I had to shut my mouth and know my role. So once I kind of took that in and realized, hey, this is my position and this is what my job is, things got so much easier.
Do you remember when you moved to Florida and you started working for FCW? Do you remember that first match you had?
So let me backtrack a little bit, right? So when I first got to Florida, a lot of people did not like me because I had skipped the developmental system and I went straight to TV and I went straight to the road. So I was already working television. Nobody knew who I was, and I had no backstory as far as developmental. So I come in and I'm just kind of like walking in and I'm trying to introduce myself. And there's a lot of people that were not too fond of me because I had skipped developmental and I went straight to TV. But eventually, just like anything else, I'm the new kid in school and I have to kind of earn my way and get earn everybody's respect.
Yeah.
So I started getting involved with the training and I started doing all that stuff, and I started seeing that, hey, I'm able to do certain things. And then eventually, I think it was in December of 2010, December, when I finally got my first match in FCW. And it was a 10-man tag. I don't remember exactly who was all in it, but I do believe Husky Harris, Bray Wyatt, and Roman Reigns were in it.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think we won that match. I don't remember. But somebody had tweeted to me the other day that I had a victory over Roman. I was like, no, I didn't. And they mentioned that. So I don't know. I don't remember what the result of that was.
I think you have a victory over Roman Reigns.
So, hey, Tribal Chief. I'm kidding.
Where did you start to tap into the comedic elements of that character?
I don't know, man. I think the more, because I think a lot of it too had to do with the more I got comfortable with my position, and then the more I realized that what Alberto's role was, and then that I was just kind of like the side, the decoration to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time I was a big fan of like Mallrats, Clerks. So I would watch like Jay and Silent Bob. So Kevin Smith to me was just awesome because he was just in the back and all he had to do was facial expressions. So I would watch a lot of that, and I would watch a lot of like silent movies just to kind of see, obviously, because they're telling you a story, but just this.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm not talking, and the very little that I am talking, it's more so just to hype up my guy. And then otherwise it's him talking, I'm in the back, and then I just have to try my hardest not to be bigger, or at least in my mind, be bigger than who I'm presenting. But yeah, it had to do, I think Kevin Smith had a lot to do with it when I started watching a lot of what he did, and I was like, I think I could do things here and there.
What I thought was so brilliant about you was you could tell that you trained to be a wrestler when you take bumps in the ring, but you wrestled like someone who didn't know how to wrestle. So it's like almost like you had to forget how to wrestle.
So I think my first match as Ricardo was an NXT. It was the original NXT when they were still on the road. And my first match was against Conor O'Brien, who now goes as Conor.
The Ascension.
The Ascension. Yeah. So, and there's a whole like full circle moment. And anytime that I see him, we always go back to that. But we can get to that later. But yeah, so it was NXT. This is back when I think Alberto and Brodus were the pros and Conor was the rookie. And at the time, Alberto was doing a lot of main event stuff on SmackDown. So he couldn't keep doing both. So we had a chat with the writers, and then they put Brodus and myself as the pros to Conor because Alberto was busy. That was all like legit. He couldn't keep doing both. So then that match happened, and I remember who the producer was, but he's like, just pretend or just go out there and suck. You're not a wrestler. Just remember you're not a wrestler. So just make it as awkward as possible. So then we did this spot where I'm supposed to give him like a splash, a running splash, and I had to make it look as dinky and terrible as possible. And that kind of happened. And then as time went on, because of that though, because people were praising it, I just kind of got more comfortable with the role and then just kind of said, screw it. I mean, this is my position, so let me run with it.
Yeah.
Let me make the most of it, because if I keep fighting it, then it's going to come back in a negative way towards me. So just embrace it.
It's similar to Santino.
Right, yeah.
Because when you look at Santino and
He's he's a shoot fighter, man.
You look at him in his WWE debut, and I think he just posted something recently on Instagram where he was in a judo competition.
Yeah, he's legit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you see him wrestling as Santino Marella with the Cobra, and it's like, that guy?
Yeah.
You're telling me that guy's a serious wrestler?
Yeah.
Very similar to what you do.
Yeah, and some, I think also too, and all of this is retrospect, because at the time, I don't think, especially for me, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, I want to wrestle. But then now when I look back at it, I was like, man, I had it pretty good. I didn't have to like destroy my body as much. And I was still on main event positions. Granted, I wasn't the marquee name, but I was still a part of big spots. And I didn't understand the idea of gratitude back then either. So I was just like, man, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy with like the marquee and then the pay-per-views, and I want to be that guy. And then, like I said, it wasn't until I realized my position and I understood my role, and I was like, man, I can just have fun with this, and I can travel, and I can make money, and then I can make people laugh, I can make people react and have emotions, and I'm grateful for that now.
Did you not have that gratitude at all when you were in WWE?
To a degree, yeah, sure. Of course, I was grateful for certain positions and certain people that we were working with. But I think deep down, I mean, I still had that, like, I want to be that guy. I want to be the star.
Was it not until you got released that you were like, now I realize what I had? No,
well, yes and no. So I think it had a lot to do with stuff. I think when Alberto and I started, we were put in main event from the get-go. Our first feud was with Ray. After Ray, I think it was like Edge and Kane, Christian, Randy, Punk, Cena, right? So right from the get-go, we were just, boom, 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 let's go. And so we got used to that too. We got comfortable. And I think after a while, just like anything else, you get used to it and you just kind of take it for granted after a bit. And and then it just kind of went from downhill. I also didn't understand the idea and the concept of it's all a cycle. So after a certain while, somebody else has to come up. And so they have to bring somebody down a little bit. And we didn't get that at the time.
You were right there for Alberto's biggest moments of his career.
Yeah. And I think also too, the fact that we were legit always together, I think that helped the dynamic.
You guys traveled together?
Yeah, we traveled together. We roomed together. I remember there was this one time where he was talking. We were driving somewhere, and then he was talking to his wife on his phone, and then he passes it on, and then because he had something else, he was talking to somebody else, and then he's like, her name was Angela. She passed away, but like Angela goes, so she's telling me, she's getting me to fill in what's going on, what are we up to, what's next, because I knew more about what we're doing than she did. So it became like a marriage, away from home. But that dynamic helped a lot too. So, and I think that was very visible on TV, I think.
Oh, it definitely was. You guys looked inseparable on TV, and clearly because you were behind the scenes too.
Yeah.
Big thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this episode and for always supporting the channel. I don't use the internet anywhere without NordVPN. I mean, you've got a lock on your door. You should protect yourself when you're online too. Public Wi-Fi is notorious for being a spot where hackers like to hang out to try to steal your data. NordVPN protects you on there, and I love how easy it is to use, whether that's on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. And you can change your virtual location with just one click and access content that's not available where you live. You can also use it to get pay-per-views for a fraction of the cost. So head to nordvpn.com/CVV to get yourself protected and to save yourself some money. Look at this deal they have going on right now. Less than $3 a month will get you covered, and you get 4 extra months for free. That's nordvpn.com/CVV. nordvpn.com/CVV.
You were there when he won the championship.
Yeah, it was at the Staples Center. What was it called again?
It's called the Staples Center.
It was the Staples Center.
People hate when I point out that it's called the Crypto.com Arena. It's Kobe's house.
Yeah. It was at the Staples Center SummerSlam, and Punk had just beaten. Who did he beat? Cena?
Think so.
I think Cena, and then Alberto cashed in. Because that's also when Kevin Nash came out, jackknife powerbomb Nash, and then Alberto comes out, gives him the kick to the head, and then here we go. What was really cool about that, and for me, it was in Los Angeles, and in front of the Mexican Latino raza. So that to me was so powerful that we were able to get to that point. Because, and again, these are things that I learned after the fact, that for that time frame that we were on top, like we were representatives of the Latino community and how beautiful that was. And because even now, every now and then, like I'll do something with Alberto, we'll go do an appearance or something, and then we'll meet people that basically tell us that for that time frame, like we were representatives of the Latino community and how special it was to them to see one of them, being in that position. So, between that, when he won the Royal Rumble in Boston, that was a beautiful moment too. And he eliminated Santino, and we were there. And I remember for that one, I forget who the ref was. He's like, just go crazy on the mic. So I started doing the Alberto thing. And then after a little bit, I got winded, and the ref just keeps going. He's like, go, just keep on. I just keep yelling. So I did that. That was annoying as hell. That was super annoying. So
why? What do you mean?
Yeah, it was annoying. I annoyed myself.
Well, that's the point of your character.
Right, yeah, but I annoyed myself.
Like people were so legitimately annoyed by your character.
Yeah.
Which means you were doing a fantastic job at your character.
Right. Yeah, and it was fun. And I got to take a lot of elements that I would see other people, like what would annoy me. So I remember my sister, whenever we were younger and we would get into like fights, she would make this face that would just annoy the bejesus out of me. She would do this whole like thing, right? And I hated it. So that's where I figured that idea. I was like, if that annoys me, it's going to annoy somebody else.
Yeah.
So those facial expressions, right? Like that's where I started looking at Alberto, right? When he would do the hand gesture.
Yeah.
So that comes from Diego Armando Maradona was a soccer player from Argentina. And whenever he would score against his opposition, he would run over to where the fans were. And he would basically just run and do this as a big fucky, right?
Wow.
So that's where that kind of came from.
Yeah.
So we take elements of like what inspires us and what makes us feel a certain way. Then if we get that reaction out of that whatever that situation is, then somebody else is bound to do it as well too.
How did you find the perfect balance of like the way that you announced him?
So it didn't start off that way. The Alberto didn't start off that way. It just kind of grew into that. Another Argentinian. So there was a soccer commentator named Andres Cantor. Andres Cantor was the one that made popular the goal, right?
Yeah.
So after a while, and then I started elongating the Alberto, and people started doing it. So then I took that inspiration from Andres, and I would tweet him too, and I tried so hard to get something going, and nothing ever happened. And then also too, WWE.com or the Twitter used to time it. And once I got wind that they were timing it, that's when I was like, all right, bet. Let me see how long I can go. And I think it was for like a pay-per-view or WrestleMania where it was like 40 some seconds.
What?
It was like 40, it was like 39 or something, 40. Let's just say 40. But it was because the Twitter thing started kicking off, and then I would hear people doing it too. And even now too, like I can go places and I can hear it. Somebody will say Alberto, right? So they don't even know me as Ricardo. They just know me as Alberto. So they'll do the thing. It's like in the episode of The Simpsons where they're looking at who was it? Was it Milhouse or Bart? And they're like, do the thing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't do it.
Yeah. So it was basically that.
But then it wasn't just Alberto. It was also Del Rio.
Right, yeah. And it was cool, but it was like I would meet folks and they would do that. They would try and roll the R. And then we could just have a whole conversation about how to roll the R. Didn't always work, but it became a thing. I remember I would be places and I would have like my headphones on. And then I could hear somebody playing Alberto's music behind me. just to see if it was me. And then obviously once I turned around and they realized that's actually him, they were like, "Hey, you're this guy." I was like,
what a theme song.
Yeah.
It's such a good theme
It
song.
was, man. It was catchy, and that's still what I use when I come out on independent scenes. So.
I mean, why not?
Yep.
How would they arrange what kind of cars you guys would have in each city?
Oh, I have no idea. That wasn't up to me. I know there was like twice, I think, that they actually used Alberto's car. And that was when we were in Miami, because at the time he used to live in Fort Lauderdale. So he had, I think it was like a 65 Mustang or whatever it was, that I think they used it twice. Because obviously he would ride it, and then when we were done, he would go home. And that was another thing too. After our first WrestleMania check, we went out, we bought ourselves Mustangs.
That's a pretty nice check.
I got lucky with mine. I actually bought mine from Johnny Ace because he was selling. Yeah. So the story with that one was he had bought it for his wife, but his wife didn't really care for it. So he had overheard the conversation that we were looking for Mustangs, because I remember one day I'll get back to that. So Johnny had heard that conversation, and he's like, "Well, I have one. I'm selling it. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "How much?" And he told me. I was like, "Yes. With that, yes, absolutely."
What year?
Mine was 65. His was Alberto was 66 or 64. So and then he had fixed it. Johnny had fixed it, but his wife didn't care for it. So he was like, "Well, I mean, if anybody wants it," and I jumped on it. But how that story came out, we were driving somewhere to like a show. It was one of those like long strips where there was like nothing, and we saw this like car cemetery, and it was all a bunch of like old cars, and when that conversation came up of how that was always like a dream car. I always wanted a Mach 1. Originally, I wanted a Mach 1. And then I think he had said something about like a Shelby. And so that's where the conversation happened.
You still have your Mustang?
No, I got rid of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
It?
Well, I sold it to Alberto, actually.
No way.
Yeah, I sold it to Alberto.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a dark time. But yeah, so eventually once we got our first WrestleMania check, that's what I did.
Man.
And I remember at the time, my girlfriend at the time, when I told her, I was like, "Hey, I bought this car. It should be here, like," because obviously it was in Stanford, and I was in Florida, so it should be here in about 2 weeks or so. And she goes like, "Oh, I've never driven a Mustang." And in my head, I was like, "You're not going to." Yeah, you're not going to. That's mine.
How loud was the roar when Ziggler cashed in on Alberto?
To me, that's still top one. That's incredible. Just because I know originally there was a plan to do it the night of WrestleMania.
Wow.
That was originally planned, and then they ended up switching it to the next day. And in retrospect, I'm glad they did, just because I think it was a little unexpected.
It was.
And what was great about it too was when they were going over the match, they have like that false finish where I think Dolph hit the Fabuser and they go 1-2 kick out, whatever, and then Alberto counters it. He does enziguri, and then I think he finally hits the arm bar, and then because Dolph has been screwed so many times, and you can just hear everybody bite on it, and that was so beautiful. So that when he did the leg thing, and he finally hit the zigzag, and then the 3 happened, dude, the eruption of that arena was so incredible, and it was something that I think everybody in unison was very happy for Dolph.
Yeah,
we knew it was going to happen.
Dolph tells the story of like, they wanted him, I guess, originally just like win it really quick. He's like, no, we got to like make it look, and these are his words, we got to make it look like Dolph is going to get Dolphed again.
Right, yeah.
Because he's been passed up so many other times, right? But it was just brilliant, like the storytelling in that 3-minute match.
Well, also too, because it was also lead up, because prior to that, it was Alberto versus Jack Swagger, and Swagger had been working on his ankle, right? So that's where that idea, and I want to say...
Cole even says, the bad leg.
Yeah. So at that time, I was very grateful too that, and any of those guys hopefully can vouch for it, was that they would come to me quite a bit to ask for like transitions, because that was like my thing. I used to be such a spot monkey on the indies. So I can remember matches. I was in my head at least, I was very creative with how to come up with certain things. So that idea kind of came up of just yanking the ankle. So then when we did, I was like, oh, that's so awesome. But ultimately that's what it was. So we figured he had just gotten attacked by Swagger, which obviously with the ankle lock. So what's the weak point is the ankle. So let's go after that. But yeah, that eruption, man, to me is still number one cash in.
You've had so many cool moments, so many fun moments, like you coming out as the Big Show, and then all you can say is,
So I did a couple of cosplays. He was one of them.
What did you have stuffed in your singlet?
I think it was a pillow. It was a pillow, and then we had, I don't remember whose boots they were. We did the skull cap thingy.
Yeah. And what'd you have in your hand?
It was an oversized, like, I don't even know what sport that was, but it was a baseball mitt, but it was something different. But that thing was massive. And so Big Show had seen when they were doing it. The one that did not see when they were dressing me up was Sheamus, when I dressed up as Sheamus. So they had gone up to him and they had asked him for I did. I went up to him and asked him for his boots because I was like, hey, they want to do something with your boots for like a design or a picture or something. Can I borrow your spare? So we didn't tell him.
Oh, man.
So they hid me in a room. And then so they dressed me up. And then right before we got to Gorilla, because all Sheamus knew was that we were doing a promo. That's all he knew. So then so we're at Gorilla, and obviously we're about to go out. And then I remember I stood next to Sheamus, and he just looks at me. And then he does that double take, and then he just lets out like a big, you motherfucker.
Because your hair looked so ridiculous.
Man, yeah. Oh, yeah. So then, so that happened. And then it was the same thing when I dressed up as Zeb Coulter. They didn't tell Swagger. They didn't tell Swagger. Because I think a big part of it was trying to get their genuine reaction. So anytime, like for instance, with the cash in, obviously we don't tell anybody except for the people involved because it's all about the genuine reaction. And then obviously the whole, you don't want it to get leaked, but just getting that real genuine reaction of what they're gonna be like when something happens.
What was the Justin Bieber thing?
So I did an intergender tag match. It was myself and Beth Phoenix versus Layla and Santino, which, by the way, Beth and I are still undefeated as tag team. Just putting it out there.
There you go.
So Beth, I don't even remember what the setup or why it happened, but somebody had the idea of ripping my tuxedo off, and then I don't remember what it was, but somebody had already mentioned the Twilight or something, and that's when Twilight was like super big, and then I just said something about like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if da-da-da-da-da. So then they went out and they found a couple shirts, but the Twilight one didn't fit at all. And then the only one that semi-fit was that Justin Bieber one, which is like super, super tight. So we did that, and then that kind of happened, and that thing still to this day follows me. So every now and then somebody will tweet me a picture of that. If I still follow Justin Bieber, if I heard his latest song, they'll tag me with something that they tweeted Justin, and they'll tag me in it. So I still get that every now and then, and yeah.
I thought it was so cool, the reception you got when you entered the Royal Rumble in 2012. So Alberto's music hits, everyone assumes it's Alberto. Then you come out in this beat up Datsun, doing the whole thing, right? Yeah. And then you get into the ring and the crowd's chanting, Ricardo, Ricardo.
So how that one came about was, it was actually in December. Alberto had gotten hurt. He took a weird bump and he had like a torn ligament in his leg, and it was actually here at the Wells Fargo in Philly. So that happened. So obviously he was out for a little bit, and we were still down at FCW. And I remember after FCW, we had gone to the Cheesecake Factory, a bunch of us, and Pat Patterson had just happened to be there too. So Pat was sitting at the bar. So out of respect, I go up to him and I just say hello, whatever. And then he asked me about Alberto. He's like, oh no, he's doing fine. He's healing up, whatever. And we started chatting. And then just for shits and giggles, I was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if during the Rumble I come out, right? We play his music and we come out, and then we laugh about it, and then we just leave it. Shortly thereafter, we did something like, I think in Dallas, and we got stuck in Dallas at the airport because of a storm. So then I'm sitting next to Malenko, and then we're just, again, just talking. We're talking about cruiserweights and whatever. And he had mentioned back then that he had pitched the idea of a cruiserweight tournament back then. And then so he asked me about Alberto, and then again, I just brought it up. I was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if during the Rumble, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just laugh about it and just leave it. So the day of St. Louis happens at the Rumble in 2012. I get to the arena, and I was typically usually one of the first folks over by the ring because I wanted to get in and just roll around. And then Michael Hayes comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, did you see your car?" And I thought that he was talking about my rental car, that somebody had done something to it. I was like, "No, what?" He's like, "Your car, did you not see what happened? Or did you not see in the back?" I was like, "No, what happened?" So he's like, "Come here." So we get to the back behind the Tinetron, whatever, the stage. And then he's like, "Your car." And then it was the car, but it was covered. It had the cover, and he lifts it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at him, and it didn't click in my head. He's like, "Did nobody tell you?" I was like, "No." He's like, "You're in the Rumble." I was like, "Huh?" So then that's kind of how I found out. So then he's like, "Yeah, this is your car," or whatever. And so then I talked to, his name was Ellis, and he was like the stunt coordinator guy. And so he showed me the car, and then I realized it's a stick shift. And then my head was like, "Dude, I'm from LA, man. Like I'm from a city. Like we don't have stick shifts." And then the last time that I drove one, I was probably like 17, 18. So I was like, "Hey, is it possible if I can just take it to the parking lot and then just kind of get a refresher?" He's like, "No, you'll be fine." I was like, "Dude, this is live pay-per-view, man. I'm doing the Rumble. I don't want to like step on the wrong thing and then either stall or even worse, just haul ass into the people." He's like, "You'll be fine." And dude, I tried convincing them to make them either because I had said something about like, can I get like stagehands to like legit push it, so we can play an audio where I stall and then you just see the stagehands push the car out. He's like, "No, you'll be fine." I was like, "Dude." So I went on YouTube and I just looked up a video of how to dry stick.
That's so funny.
And then that's just kind of went from there.
Man.
But yeah, dude, the whole time I was just like sweating buckets.
But then you get in the ring and what a reception.
Oh man. And then also too, just who was in there, just Mick Foley, and he's such an angel, man. He's such a kind soul. Cody Rhodes, the first person I attacked when I got in the ring was Cody Rhodes in the corner. So I started pummeling Cody. So, I'm just saying, he's a champ right now, and I took down Cody. I'm just saying.
But there must have been a moment where you're like, they appreciate.
This is surreal. Yeah. It was surreal. It's not often when at least for me in my head, a comedy role or a comedy personality kind of gets that appreciation. Because obviously this whole time I was just on the side, and I was just, obviously I'm there to help out Alberto. That's my role.
Yeah.
So to have that spotlight for even that minute and a half or whatever that was, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
To share the ring with Justin Gabriel, Cody at the time, Santino and Mick Foley was really cool.
Yeah.
And I got to eliminate Justin Gabriel. So PJ, sorry, man. So I have one elimination in the Rumble.
If you're wanting to burn some extra calories or sweat out some toxins from a particularly big evening of food and drinks and indulging, check out the infrared sauna blanket from Bon Charge. I've been using this since last year, and I love how it raises your body temperature while you're just kind of sitting there relaxing, reading a book or watching TV. A session's usually 30 to 40-ish minutes, and you can burn up to 600 calories in one session. I was looking into getting a sauna because I knew of all the health benefits associated with it. And I knew it would complement the cold plunging really well. I do it every day, like I start the day with a cold plunge, and then right into the sauna, so extreme cold, and then into the heat. Then I saw the cost of a sauna, and an infrared sauna blanket from Bon Charge is a fraction of that price. And I think it might actually be better because you just kind of roll it out and crawl into it, kind of like a sleeping bag. It heats up in just a minute, and then you just let it do its thing. And I always feel so refreshed when I'm done with the infrared sauna blanket. Head to boncharge.com/CVV to check out the infrared sauna blanket and use my code CVV. You'll save 15% on it. They've got free lightning fast worldwide shipping, and you're covered with a 12-month warranty. So that's boncharge.com/CVV and the code CVV to save 15%.
You're the answer to a trivia question, and a lot of people won't know this. You wrestled in Bret Hart's final match.
Yeah.
And you are the last person to tap out to a sharpshooter.
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah.
It's insane. We were in Ottawa, Ontario. I think we were in Ontario that day. We're at the gym, Alberto and I, and then we get a text from Road Dogg, and he tells Alberto like the rundown. He's like, "Hey, tonight's gonna be you and Ricardo against John Cena and Bret Hart," and we're like, "Ha!" So we're waiting for the LOL, right? And it never came. So we're like, okay. So then I got the text. I was like, wait, what? All right, this is gonna happen. So obviously Ricardo's not a wrestler. So I had my wrestling gear, but Ricardo's not a wrestler. So that at that gym that we were at, they had they were selling like women's tights and stuff, which I liked them a little bit more because they're more colorful, and then they have more designs than the men's, and obviously there's not any men's tights. So I bought a couple of the female workout tights, and I took it to the production office or to Road Dogg, and then he's like, yeah, that one. But yeah, so then we go over like the match, and then it's still not clicking in my head like what's about to happen. And then we get in the ring, and I'm like, dude, this is cool. This is awesome. I'm working with, I've worked with John, but I was always grateful for the opportunity. But just the fact that, hey, we're in Canada, Bret Hart's about to put me in a sharpshooter. This is cool. This is super cool. So that's one of those images that I still, like, I think I have that printed in the office too.
Does he walk you through it before?
No. No, we just did it.
Wow.
Yeah, we just did it. I mean, obviously, I've been wrestling long enough. I knew how to take it. But still, it was just one of those surreal moments where, like, I remember I'm on my back and I'm looking up and I'm like, dude, this is cool. This is cool.
Yeah. Tapped out to the sharpshooter.
Yeah. And also, too, another cool moment with another submission was Jericho actually put me in the line tamer. It wasn't the Boston Crab. It was a line tamer.
With the
that
knee.
Was cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was marking out like a little bitch.
That match you had with Santino was hilarious.
You
wrestled in a tuxedo.
Yeah, that was. I think I was here in Pennsylvania, the first one, and that was cool because they just kind of let us do our thing, and we just had a lot of fun with it. It was all comedy, and Santino's a genius, man. Like his whole thing, and how that started was Santino on WWE.com had his own little show, his little podcast. I think it was like the Santino Exchange or something. And I think the guy that he originally had for that day he got busy or something. So he asked me. So we did an interview thing, and it was all just on the fly. And then I guess whoever was one of the writers liked it. And then we started doing skits for WWE.com. And then that's how the whole storyline happened. So it was just one of those that we did something for his YouTube thing or WWE.com, and it just went from there.
It was just so funny. Like you don't see a ton of comedy matches. Mm-hmm. Like R-Truth is obviously
he's a
genius and a legend, right?
Yeah.
But to have two comedy acts together at the same time, it was magic.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And he's a genius too. I mean, Santino's awesome. He's so quick-witted. I'm sure you've talked to him. And
he's great.
He's super quick on everything.
Yeah, he's the best. So where does everything go from all of these amazing moments that we're talking about to... Is there a falling out there? Do things start falling off and you realize maybe I'm going to get released here?
So I never got released. I asked for it. So it wasn't like I was a part of like that big thing or whatever. At the time I had already been separated from Alberto. I was doing the Spanish commentary, but I wasn't feeling it. At least I wasn't happy at the time. I was going through a lot of depression. I wasn't happy. I wasn't making what I had been making prior, and I had a lot of discussions with the office, with Carano, and we just couldn't get anywhere. And they got to honestly one day where I didn't get on the flight. I woke up the next day on a Monday, and I called Carano. I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm still at home. I'm not coming in."
Wow. What was the reaction to that?
He's like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah. I've tried talking to you a few times, man, and it's just not going anywhere." And at the time I was 29. I was like, I think I'm still young enough where I can kind of do stuff. And I just want to say thank you, but I think I'm done. He's like, all right, well, you know what? Stay home. Let me talk to Vince and Hunter, and let me call you back. I was like, cool, no big deal. And he called me like on a Wednesday. It was like 5:00-ish on a Wednesday. And he's like, hey, I just talked to Paul and Vince, and we're going to grant you the release. You're always welcome to come back, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, no, thank you. And then a lot of bitterness kind of went into the next couple of minutes, because as soon as I hung up with the phone, I started getting all these alerts on Twitter that I had been released. And in my head, I was like, these motherfuckers, they didn't even wait like a day or anything. As soon as I got off the phone, they had posted that I was let go. I was like, dude, like you couldn't have waited. I mean, I'm sure they have a reasoning, or they have somebody like on standby that as soon as that happens, hey, let's get the first leg up there.
Yeah.
But I was just so angry and bitter, and then for months and years, really, I had this like disdain for wrestling and just the company, and just because obviously there's a lot of stuff that led into it, but I wasn't happy.
Was there a part of you that went, maybe I made the wrong decision? Maybe I shouldn't have asked for my release?
Yes and no. I think at the time I felt like it was going to happen. And then the last thing that I wanted was to talk to them in person, because I've seen what they've done to people sometimes when they're on their way out. They try to put them in a weird situation.
On TV, you mean?
on TV.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Like they ridicule you on your way out.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I've heard reasonings for that, but I didn't, at the time, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was already a comedy role as it is, so I'm like, how far are they going to take me to ridicule me?
When did you start being okay with wrestling again?
Almost immediately, I got contacted by Carlos Colon in WWC, and then he had asked me if I wanted to go wrestle for him. So even though I still had this little bitterness to wrestling, whatever, I was like, well, I mean, life still has to go on. I still, I need to make money.
Yeah. So
I went, I did that, and it was a good experience. It was fun, but I still had that hatred towards the company. I obviously there was a lot of alcohol that was involved with a lot of my social media postings after I left WWE and stuff that I'm not necessarily ashamed of what I said. I'm more ashamed of how I said it, and I wish I would have approached it differently. Because a lot of those feelings were valid. I just didn't know how to manage them, and obviously a lot of them were alcohol induced. So, and that became a big problem as I went along, and then I just went on a downhill slope from there.
When did you realize alcohol was a problem?
When did I know it was a problem, and when I actually decided to do something about it are way different timelines. Very different. When I knew early on it was, but once you're addicted to something, man, it's hard to let go of that. And I tried so many different ways to get out of that little cusp of that hold that addiction gets on you.
And it was every day?
It was every day. Yeah, it was every day. And the only time I didn't was when I was sobering up, so that I can kind of get better and then enough for me to be able to get up and go get more. Obviously, the alcohol led to the drugs, the women, all that stuff, the partying, that whole lifestyle became a thing because obviously once I left WWE, I had all the time in the world. I didn't have to show up anywhere. I gained a lot of weight. I was just always angry and bitter. I was so good at self-victimizing. This is happening to me because of all of you. None of this is my fault. It's all your fault. I was so good at that because that's what an addict does. And there was a lot of people that were trying to help me that I didn't realize that they were. And at the time, I think I saw them as they're just trying to get in the way of my good time. So F them. And I kept pushing people away. And in retrospect, a lot of people left me. A lot of people that I thought were close friends, they left. And I was so angry at the time of why they're leaving me, that they're deserting me. But when I look back at it, I was like, I don't blame them. I was terrible. I was constantly drugged up. I was drunk. I was miserable. I was a slob, and I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about me. And it was just it was a cycle. It became a cycle where obviously because of the WWE schedule that we had, it was always go, go, go. And then we get out of Raw at, let's say, 11 o'clock. By the time you get out of the arena and then the city, maybe midnight, you get to the next town, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you go to sleep for a couple of hours, you wake up, you go to the breakfast, you go to the gym, and you go straight to the arena.
Yeah.
So, I was used to like just running and functioning on very little sleep. And I didn't know how to manage it. So obviously when I left WWE, I still had that same cycle, but I had nothing in between. So I used to supplement that adrenaline of being in front of a camera, because obviously that's not there anymore. So what happens when the red light goes off and I have no way of getting that high was alcohol. So the insomnia kicked in a lot too. The insomnia led to me drinking wine, because at the time wine would make me sleepy, because and as the irony was, I did not want to do pills because I didn't want to get addicted to pills. That turned out very well for me. And so the wine, and then I had 1 glass, and then 2 glasses, and then the whole bottle, and then 2 bottles, and then 3 bottles. And I was like, man, this is getting expensive, so let me just get a box of wine. So I could chug a whole box of wine by myself. But then it was a lot of sugar. So I was like, all right, so let me switch over to alcohol, to hard liquor. So I went to vodka because vodka is healthier, right? It just became a thing.
And then from there, did it go to drugs?
No, I mean, that was always in there. But then, and actually the drugs stopped when I started getting more heavy into the alcohol because I could just do it all at home. The drugs was only when I was out, when I was out and about. If I went to like a club or a party, whatever, and I was out and I knew that somebody had it, I was like, let's go. Like Toucan Sam.
Follow your nose?
Yeah, follow your nose. But once it got to that point of it was just liquor, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Because it was easier, obviously. I would like scrape up as much loose change as I could because I wanted to stop using my card. And I knew that as soon as that 7 o'clock in the morning hit, I can go to a little store and I can buy those little cheap pop-off BS vodka, and that will set me off for the day. But then the liquor started becoming a little bit too much. So I was like, all right, so what's my next fix? So then I became in the Four Locos because for $3, right, mentally in my head, that was an easy, quick buzz. But then it became a thing, just like anything else. Your body gets used to it. So 1 became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 4. I could down like 7 a day.
Wow.
And it became an issue.
Yeah.
Again, the weight gain and all that stuff, just the not caring. And then in 2017, I had a quick little mild baby stroke-ish. And then the way that the doctor described, because I had so much going on in my heart. So what had happened was after that, they had put me on this medication to kind of regulate my heartbeat. But that just got me even more depressed because they brought me so down that the suicidal thoughts started kicking in. And I tried. Obviously, I failed because I'm still here. But I'm grateful that I did. Right?
Yeah, we're all glad you're still here.
And there was a point, man, I wrote a letter. I was dating this girl who she used to own a gun, and she left it at the house one day because she couldn't have it at her place. I was home alone, and I was like, you know what, screw it. And I remember holding it in my hand. I wrote a letter, and that letter still exists somewhere. I never got rid of it. So I wrote there was a whole lot of fuck yous in there. But
you were still angry.
Oh, I was still angry. Yeah, I was so angry. But there was a whole lot of fuck yous in there, in that letter. But I remember holding that gun in my hand, and something clicked, and I was like, nah, I'm done, and I don't want to do this. I still went on this little bender for a couple more years. And then, like my girlfriend, another girlfriend I was dating at the time, she would constantly go down to Florida just to see me to make sure I was okay. Because she would call me and I wouldn't answer because, again, I was so far gone. That blessed her for sticking around for as long as she did. Ultimately, she left, and I don't blame her. I get it. And same with my mom. My mom would end up flying from LA to Florida to make sure I was still alive. I had so many of those wellness calls from the police that people had called in just to make sure I was still alive. Because once I got into my little bender, like I would turn off my phone or I would just lose it somewhere. And
you'd be alone?
I'd be alone. I would lock myself in my room. I would go buy enough booze to like last me like a week or so that I don't have to leave anywhere. The only time I got out of there was to go pee or to go to the bathroom. I wouldn't even eat, but it was because I was consuming my calories and liquor. And it was terrible. It was terrible. And then I did my first stint at a detox, like in 2000. I think it was like 2000 is when I did my first one. 2001. No, I think it was 2000 when I first went to a detox. And I did like the 5-day cleanse thing.
2020?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, 2020. It was when I first went in LA in Tarzana. So I went to Tarzana, whatever is on Ventura Boulevard. So I did that. I did 5 days there, and then they put me on Vivitrol. So I was on Vivitrol, which helps. So you don't get the cravings. So it helps numb the sensors in your brain, so you don't get cravings as much. And it helped. It worked for a little while. From there, I ended up going to Egypt. I got an offer to go to Egypt, so I spent time over there for almost a year. And I did well for a while because it's a very conservative country. So liquor is not as widely promoted as it is here in the States, where you can see advertisements all over the place, right? You go to like here in this case, the Sheets, and there's like the Fireballs right next to the cash register.
Sure. Yeah.
So over there, it's a little bit more hard to get, but like a good addict, right? You have to find it somewhere. And I come back to the U.S. and I go right back to my BS. I spent time in San Antonio. Went down to Mexico City, and just again, I was just on it. I kept waking up in alleyways. I kept waking up in my car on the side of the road because I had taken the alcohol and I was just drinking on the way home. I would wake up super early to go to like the 7-Eleven, get enough booze at 7 o'clock in the morning once they started selling it, and then walk back. And then sometimes I wouldn't even make it back home because I had gotten super plastered on the way home that I would pass out in an alleyway. I woke up in like hospital, the little detox centers at hospitals. I woke up in a few of them quite a bit. And every single time, they would always take your phone, right? And this one time, it was the last time, obviously, that I woke up in a detox center in San Antonio, is the only time I ever had my phone. And I had one of those like moments. I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like I've burnt every bridge.
Is this the police bringing you to the detox center?
I have no idea who brought me.
Huh.
I would just wake up and I'm in the hospital.
Wow.
How I got there, I don't know. I remember once I woke up in Barcelona in the hospital, and I had like the IVs, and I had all my stuff with me, and I just took them off and I walked out in Barcelona. And I don't know how I managed to get back to where my hotel was because I don't remember where I was. Wow. But I somehow managed to find like a landmark. I was like, oh, I know that. But yeah, so I woke up in San Antonio, and I had my phone, and I put out a tweet. I was like, hey, I need help. I screwed up. And this gentleman by the name of Christopher Dreisbach had just happened to see my tweet, and he's never on Twitter. So then he sends me a DM, and he's like, hey, if you're really serious about getting help, let's talk. Let's figure something out. And WWE has this really cool wellness program part where if you've been with them and you encounter a similar situation, that they can help you out. They'll figure something out. So then I got in contact with WWE, and this is where a good friend of mine, Drew McIntyre, comes in. I sent Drew a message, and I was like, hey, can you find out the information of the wellness, who's ever in charge, something. So then he dug around and he got me the info. I contacted WWE because of that, and it became a thing, and that's how we got connected. I had talked to WWE, and then I told him who had contacted me up here in Lancaster, and he's like, "Oh, and we've done stuff with them before. Go ahead and set it up, and we can figure out the details later." So Drew was a big part of making that connection.
So the moment that changed everything for you was just you were fed up.
Yeah,
you didn't want to keep doing this.
Well, because I knew I had a problem. Yeah. I knew I had a problem. I knew.
It sounds like you knew you had a problem for years.
Yeah, for years. I knew I had a problem, but just like I said, just like a good addict, I mean, you're so trapped by that feeling, because ultimately what it is that we have this void inside of us, and I'm trying to fill it with something. And that quick little high, or that quick little rush of the alcohol was the closest I felt to feeling good. For that temporary moment, I felt happy. Right, and it's fun until it's not. Yeah, and then that passes really quick. But you're already so far in that, hey, like we're there, and then that's it. But then ultimately, it was back in March 23rd. I got picked up here in Harrisburg, PA. I got taken to the recovery center. I got checked in, and yeah, that's how that started. And 2.5 years later, here we are.
Congratulations.
Still clean and sober.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why you're still here in Pennsylvania.
That's why I'm still here.
And you've built a life for yourself here.
Yeah.
It's a business.
It does have a happy ending, honestly. And then,
it's right here.
Yeah. It's this. It's all this.
Yes.
And then just the fact that I'm able to give back to the business, right? If it wasn't for a lot of folks that were very open about their addiction and how they got better, and then I've been very open about this too. Like X-Pac hit me up a while ago, early on too, if I was okay. Same with Mick. Mick hit me. I saw Mick at a convention, and he's like, "Hey, you're right." I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." He's like, "I'm just worried about you, just making sure you're okay." I was like, "Yeah, no, thank you." But then I would see, the daily posts of like Road Dogg where he would do like his version of the Serenity Prayer. I would see like Mike Bennett post certain things, right, about his recovery. So if it wasn't for them recovering out loud, I wouldn't have known that was even a possibility.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when it comes to like the whole aspect of mental health and talking about your feelings, we're fucking men. We don't share our feelings, right? We're goddamn men.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that. And then obviously a lot of us, especially in the Latino community, we grow up as like, you're not a fucking pussy. Get up. Get up. Are you hurt? No, then get up. Right? So we have that mentality of unless you're like dying on the side of the road, get up.
Yeah.
You got to keep going. So, and there's no sense of verbalizing how you feel. It's like, you're a man. Nobody cares. Get up. Keep going. And to a degree, I still hold on to a little bit, but I'm more open to the idea of, hey man, like I'm not feeling good right now. Let me take a breather, and I can kind of regulate myself. So just that sense of regulating your emotions, instead of letting them overpower you, because then the moment you let your emotions get the better of you, you've lost.
You feel like you're still battling it every day?
Oh, of course. Yeah. This never goes away. But I've just gotten better at managing it. It's a daily battle. I've gotten better at how to control it and how to manage it. The concept of being mindful and grateful is a key element. Also, learning how to take a pause when something upsets me instead of instantly reacting to whatever just pissed me off. Just taking that pause.
That's powerful right there.
You just take that pause and weigh out the pros and cons of what you're about to do.
Yes.
Because if I go back to the same route that I used to do of the instinct, fuck me, fuck you, right? That's where that's going to take me, and that's not going to be anywhere good. So that sense of taking a pause, slow down. I'm not answering you because I don't care, whatever it is. It's like, hold on, let me just process this before I give you a more accurate answer.
Have you heard of the book, The Four Agreements?
No.
One of them is, it's 4 agreements that if you can make them with yourself, life will be a lot better. One of them is never take anything personally.
Right, yeah.
And that reminds me of what you're saying there. Like, it's so easy in the moment to just be reactionary, take it personally. You're doing that thing because of me. And it's like some random person at the airport or something. Yeah. Like, they don't know who you are.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah.
You. But that pause, man, that's so powerful.
It is, and it's helped me so much. And that's another one too, of just not taking everything personal.
Yeah.
Because while it's eating you up, to them, they're not even aware of it. So you're upset at this, but to them, it's I think it was like in Thanos or whatever, or it was like, oh, it's just another Tuesday or whatever it was. Yeah. So that kind of a thing. Unless you actually go and talk to them, they don't even know it's a thing.
The 4 agreements are: never take anything personally, don't make assumptions,
right?
Always do your best, and I always forget them.
Control.
Control the controllable is such a good phrase that I live by as well. It's gonna come to me here.
And ultimately, too, man, like when we think about it, how like there's only one thing that I can control.
Be impeccable with your word is the other one.
Yeah.
And if you can do that for yourself,
and taking that pause will come with that.
You say something, you're gonna do that thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that goes into, we can go into like the whole business aspect of all of this and how creating checkpoints along the way instead of having one main goal. You have to create checkpoints along the way. So then you have to celebrate those achievements.
Love that.
So that's a whole another animal, But yeah, and ultimately too is like the only thing that I can ever control is how I react. I can't control you. I can't control what happens outside. If it's cold, then all right, it's cold. It sucks, but like I'll just put on a hoodie.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. So this is where the idea of mindfulness to me really kicked in. We were going back to our house from the rehab center, right? Because we had to go from the where we were all staying to the actual like where we did like the therapy and all that stuff, right? And it was all like a big van, so they would fit like 12 of us. We would call it the druggy buggy. So then we're coming down this hill, and then I'm by the window, and the driver slams on the brake, and then everybody's like, what the fuck, and this, right? So they're yelling, and I remember I had my headphones on, and then and I'm looking out the window, and then there's this tree, and there's this bird on it, and there's this ray of light that's hitting the bird, and it looks so beautiful, right? So even though, for what I'm getting with that was the perception of our reality and then just being mindful of our surroundings, because even though we all experience the same thing, that car in front of us slam on, pause in front of us.
Yeah.
So the driver, got mad. Everybody else got mad.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm not mad because I'm watching this over here. But we all experience the same thing.
Yes.
So my idea of concept of mindfulness is see everything else that's around you, because oftentimes when we just look at one thing, then we forget about everything else. And then you think of, for instance, like the horse blinders.
Yeah.
You become narrow-minded and that's all you see. You miss out on so much that's around you. And that's been super helpful.
I think I realized in the last few years, no one cares if you complain.
No.
Like there is no benefit to complaining.
No.
It might make you feel a little bit good in that moment, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
No, nobody cares to hear you complain about whatever it is. I was on a flight recently and it was delayed, and the guy that was sitting across the aisle kept doing, oh my, yeah. Like, buddy, that changes nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to miss your appointment or whatever it's going to be, but complaining and making these weird noises isn't going to do a damn thing.
There was a point where, because I still do therapy, my therapist, he said it a lot more aggressively, but sometimes that's what I need, right? And you need that little like, all right, dude, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I remember I was complaining about something. He's like, what's that going to do for you? So you bitching, complaining, what's that going to do for you?
Yeah.
Do something about it. If you're unhappy with something, instead of bitching, complaining, do something about it.
Yeah.
Fix the situation. And ultimately, that's how you react. And then you being upset about this situation is only going to put like a little a cloudy rain or a rainy cloud over your head. And instead of like, all right, so that happened. You can't control that, but you can just look up and see that, hey, there's this thing going on. And but like you bitching and moaning, that's not going to help anything.
Have you seen that meme where it's two people riding on a train?
Yes. And then one's looking that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. That.
One person's looking at like a rock wall. The other person's looking at the beautiful sun.
Yep, that.
Yeah.
It's that.
It's the exact same train ride.
Mm-hmm. And we're all experiencing the same thing, and then just different perceptions, like a different, universe.
Yeah. I could talk about this stuff all the time.
Same.
I love your perception on things, and congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you. And it doesn't happen overnight, though. It's all a process, and that's another thing. The whole trust in the process. What I know now is something that I did not know, or that I was not aware of 6 months ago, that I was not aware of 2 years ago, and that person that I was 3 years ago is not anything where I am now.
Yeah.
But I am grateful that I went through all that, though. I have to be grateful for those experiences, because of all that I experienced, I'm able to appreciate what I have now. Because I lost all of it. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to build it back up. But I'm also humble enough that I know that like that, I can lose it. Because the moment we leave this, if for whatever reason I go outside and I have an anxiety attack and I'm like, screw this, I'm going to go get drunk, then it's all gone. Right? So I can't promise that in 5 minutes from now I'll be sober, but I can promise you right now. And then so long as I just keep applying that every couple of minutes or every day, whatever, so the whole one day at a time thing.
Yeah. Dustin Rhodes said in the interview that we had, keep stepping.
Yeah.
Whether that's minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, whatever, just keep stepping.
Yeah. And ultimately too, I think a lot of times with a lot of folks is just it's a lack of purpose. And I think that's where.
Is this your purpose now?
Right. Oh yeah.
Three Legacies?
This is my purpose. The fact that I'm able to help others live their dream, that I'm able to provide a platform to help others. And then another thing that we do too is we go to different rehab centers and we talk to individuals. We do this thing with my partner where it's called Night of Recovery. So we'll get people that have gone through this whole process of the addiction and then the getting better and then coming on the other side, and how we were able to turn our life around, and with the intent of offering some bit of hope. And if we can reach at least one person that can potentially save their life, then we're happy. And also a matter of educating the family members of those who have somebody who's going through that. Because I remember when how alone I felt, even though I was surrounded by people, how alone I felt. And then when people gave up on me, and that's a shitty feeling. A lot of people gave up on me. And again, I don't blame them. But I feel like a lot of it was because they didn't know what to do with me or how to handle my situation. And they just didn't want any part of it. Again, I don't blame them. But just also to offer the idea that there is help available, that it is possible to get better, that it is possible to overcome those demons and become a functioning member of society once again. Yeah. So that is possible. And then if there's anything that I can I can guarantee is that this idea that people never change, I call bullshit on that, because if you want to see somebody change, look at somebody in long-term recovery. Because that person that is now is not what that person was back then.
Yeah.
And it's a whole night and day. And there's a whole lot of wide examples of that being true.
Yeah. I'll link up Three Legacies Wrestling down below. So if people are watching on YouTube, they can go click and subscribe to you guys.
Please, yeah.
And if you're listening on the podcast, I'll have that in the show notes. I'm honored to be part of the show.
I'm happy, man. It'll be a whole lot of fun. 2 years of building this up, man. It's been a whole process and it's been wild, but we're here.
Yeah, I can tell the excitement when you talk about it.
Yeah.
And I love that.
This is my baby, you know?
And like you said, it's also your purpose.
Yeah.
And I love that that's the thing that drives you now.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of us in our life, whatever it is, we need something to continue to be pushing towards.
It does. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. My little girl has changed my life. We got a little boy on the way as well. I also enjoy having these conversations, but that's the purpose for me. It's cool that we all have something, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing. Thank you for inviting me into your ring.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me here, man. This is awesome.
You've mentioned gratitude 100 times in this interview, and I love it because that's like the focal point of my life is living with gratitude. It's the last question I ask in every interview. So what are 3 things that you're grateful for as we sit here right now?
I'm grateful for everything that I was able to overcome. It was an experience that at the time I hated, but I'm grateful that I went through all of that to have what I have now and to be appreciative of what we have. I'm grateful for the circle that I have. It's a small circle, but it's a very powerful one that keep me in line and they keep me motivated. And ultimately, I think the biggest thing that I'm grateful for is that I'm no longer the reason why my mom cries. And then that's a powerful one.
Wow. Thank you, sir.
Gracias.
Appreciate you.